Hello there, this is Stacy Sanderson, wanting to take some time to check in, of course, and just introduce the series of videos I'm planning on offering that go through the diagnostic criteria of narcissism, but then put that not just in layman's terms, so to speak, but to really look at how that plays out in real life, right? So sometimes it can be confusing if we're trying to interpret the diagnostic criteria, but really looking at those traits and patterns and behaviors and what you might observe, and of course how all of those things exist on a continuum of severity. And I think that it's important that that severity be clarified, that it isn't what the person who has the narcissistic traits experiences, but rather what the people around them experience. And so I am a registered psychotherapist. I take a holistic, trauma-informed approach to helping people with a variety of things, but I have a specific interest and expertise in narcissistic wounding and narcissistic recovery. And I believe that an important part of that recovery is empowerment. And an important part of empowerment is knowledge and information, right? Seeking a deeper, informed idea of what's going on in the narcissistic relationship dynamic, and a deeper, more aligned understanding what's going on with the individual, right? Something that aligns with those of us who are perhaps more empathic, for example. So in the work I do with clients, we spend time both in a group setting, in talks like this, offered on a virtual platform, but also here in the office, right? Also here, kind of connecting one-on-one, talking about what all of this means. So, breaking it all down, right? The trait I'm going to choose to focus on first is that of grandiosity. And like, what the heck does that mean, right? And grandiosity is something that as mental health professionals, we might encounter and we might be looking for in a variety of situations, right? People can be very grandiose when they're manic, for example, or rather in a manic episode. People can be grandiose if they have schizophrenia, right? You know, they might believe that they're a king or a queen or Jesus, right? That's a very specific form of grandiosity. I feel compelled to say that I think that it's different in narcissism. I mean, yeah, can they be delusional? You betcha. Can they be out of touch with reality? Of course, of course. But that grandiosity, I think, is a little different because there's a part of them that knows that it's not necessarily true. So this shows up in obvious and not so obvious ways. This can be like that big personality, right? That person who takes up a lot of space and oxygen in the room, right? It can be that. Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. There can be this interesting kinship that narcissists rather have with celebrities. They might identify with a more than one celebrity, right? I've heard a lot about narcissists really dissociating into TV, particularly reality TV, and they can really identify with famous people or feel that that's more their tribe or where they belong, right? Although I guess, you know, famous people are really like the rest of us. There can be a sense that they can only be around special people or only special people can understand them, right? So I've encountered this, as you can well imagine, as a therapist, right? Being grilled on what my credentials are, for example. Being grilled on where I went to school. And another kind of sneaky example of this is something I call the social interview. We've all been through it, right? Who are you married to? What did you do? Where did you go to high school? Where do you live? What neighborhood do you live in? What groups or communities are you affiliated with? So the social interview is a way that narcissists will get a sense of their superiority or inferiority to you. But part of that grandiosity is really fed by that need to feel superior. Okay. So this is not something that might be obvious. This could be something that could be very covert, something that's kind of running under the surface, right? They may be quietly more competitive or comparing. There can be that covert element of, I am more deserving than this person. Why does this person have this and I don't? That's another form of grandiosity. And I'll add on to that. This is one I'm kind of familiar with. There is this idea that they should have money, status, credentials, material goods, social standing that they have not earned, right? So that they should have all of the goods, but not really commensurate with what their achievements are, right? Or what their effort might be, if that makes sense. So these are people who blatantly will lie about their credentials, right? These are folks who will advertise themselves in a way that might not be accurate. They may label themselves as like a leader or a guru, for example. And to be fair, sometimes they can genuinely believe that they are God chosen or gifted in some way, right? So I'm kind of moving into kind of more mystical, creepy, mystical narcissism or spiritual narcissism territory here. But that's something that you would be looking for. And again, that's all about that need to feel superior. What else is on here? They can use really superlative language, which I recognize I just did. But they can speak in ways that don't make a lot of sense, right? A lot of, as we say, word salad. I've noticed that narcissists use words out of context, right? Or they're using, they're trying to be impressive in their vocabulary, but they're not quite nailing it, right? That can happen. And that there can be this idea to just appear larger than life or sit in the shadows and do a lot of comparing, all right? Comparing and competing. So part of that grandiosity is that need to win at all costs. And that I would say in order to feel good enough, they need to be better than. I think that's a core narcissistic wound. Whether it's the narcissist themselves or someone who is in relationship with them. I'm going to just touch on something I said earlier. I'm going to circle back to it though, that there's an unrealistic expectation about being treated like they're special. So you're going to see this if you go out for dinner with these folks, right? Like they can be quite rude to the servers, or they can kind of demand special treatment, right? They can be, rather demanding, if you will. And that's not always obvious. This can be quiet, right? This can be a bit more behind the scenes even, but this expectation that they're deserving of special behavior and only special behavior will do, right? It's kind of like the, hey, do you know who I am narrative. But it's unrealistic most of the time, right? So, and again, these are all things that are ego syntonic, meaning, they don't necessarily see that there's a problem with this. This is a tricky one. This whole idea of needing to be treated like they're special. It's not always an obvious thing to pick up on. And it is, it's something that they may end up being angry with you and you might not understand it. Okay. You might wonder what you did wrong, I believe there's a grandiosity that is evident in the ghosting of people or in not following through with plans can be another one. It's important, though, that I feel that this grandiosity really is a defense mechanism around vulnerability, right? The grandiosity is a way to protect against not feeling special. So somewhere in there is a profound soul or self-esteem issue, right? So soul esteem, self-esteem speaks to the way we have a sense of value within our families, our tribes, our communities, any of the systems we live in. So if you have to feel bigger than or more special to just feel normal, I suppose that's a more compassionate way of thinking about this grandiosity. So it is very much a defense mechanism. And I think many of us would have experienced this as children. It's just that narcissists get kind of stuck there, right? They're stuck in that inner child identity of needing to feel special. So where most of us have learned to get that intrinsically, right, our own inner value and self-worth, narcissists have learned to get this extrinsically. So please like, follow, comment, subscribe. Please put your thoughts down in the comments. Feel free to ask any questions. Let's get going in this conversation. And so that's it for now. The next video I will be talking about, and now I can't even remember, an element or something that relates to grandiosity, which is the concept of being interpersonally exploitive, right? So thank you for tuning in and listening. Always happy to connect with you, and I wish you well.